Well, welcome to another At Odds pod. We're back. A little bit more education thanks to the first week of the Premier League season, second week of the EFL. We've got tips for both coming up. We'll touch on some foreign footy. I'll bask in the glory of my anti-post tip from last week, shortening. And I got a 33-1 shot for the Arc that we'll talk about a little bit later on. I know Sam Farley's keen to get back into that. But Sam, how was last week for you? Just a general quick overview of the return to the Premier League?
Absolutely loved having it back. I'm in that sort of honeymoon of the Premier League right now. I would sit and watch, I don't know, Bournemouth versus Leicester. I'd do anything just to watch a rubbish game like that. In a few months, I know I'm just going to be like, nah, I'm not going to stay in and watch that. But right now, just give me any Premier League I can get.
Jake will touch on your precious Man City, but they certainly impressed. Were you pleased to see Premier League back? Feels a little bit more like we're ready to go.
Yeah, I was absolutely buzzing. There were a few surprises, actually. I didn't think that United would drop points. I know, Boz, last week you mentioned that you could see them slipping up a little bit.
Yeah.
There was a couple of shocks thrown in there, but yeah, I'm buzzing for it to be back.
We'll come to our banker bust and draw. Mixed results last week. I let us down with Villa, but I did call the United game. I didn't think necessarily Brighton would win, but geez, there's a lot to unpack into that. But Pat show, lads have got a couple of other bits and pieces to talk through as ever. But I suppose we'll start with a game in focus for the weekend, which is going to be Chelsea hosting neighbours Spurs. Interesting matchup. We've got Antonio Conte going back to the bridge as a bit of an angle. Let's kick off with you first of all, Jake. Do you think either of these teams are going to be in the title mix?
I think you've got to say Tottenham are going to be in and around there, to be honest. Their performance on Saturday, I saw them go 1-0 down and I thought, oh no, it's Spursy. Spursy going to Spursy it again. But then to show the resilience to stay in the game and just kick on from it, really, and have goals scored by unfamiliar goal scorers like Eric Dyer, for example. It's impressive, I've got to say. I had Harry Kane in my fantasy team, by the way, and he did nothing in terms of goals and assists. And I think that's an even bigger positive for Spurs because we've all said that Harry Kane's going to play a big part this season, and obviously at the weekend there wasn't too much that he had to do, but I'm confident of Spurs, yeah.
Sam, turning to Chelsea now, obviously played Everton, got the result they needed. I didn't see too much of that game, but from the highlights, I felt like Chelsea seemed a bit of a work in progress. Obviously, they still feel like they're signing and letting players go. Timo Werner's disappeared back to Germany today with his tail between his legs, having had probably not the fairest crack at the whip in terms of the Premier League. I'd love to have seen him go to Newcastle or a team like that and have a bit of a run, but Chelsea this year, what do you expect from them as a neutral?
I think I said before the season that they're one I could see slipping out the top four and Tuchel actually leaving. And I'm not really seeing anything to change my mind on that. The defence worries me. They obviously signed Cucurella since we last spoke. I think they're chasing for Fana. I don't think there's anything gone through on that at the time of recording, at least. They're being linked with the likes of Aubameyang, Frankie de Jong,
Zaha.
Like, it seems to me they don't know what they want. They're just scrabbling around. It's 10-2. The lights are coming up in the nightclub, and you're just looking to get your hands on something. And
How dare you talk about Wilfried Zaha like that, Sam Farley? I take your point. It doesn't feel like the most educated of shopping, does it? It feels.
But that isn't like Thomas Tuchel. Thomas Tuchel knows what he wants, and that concerns me that these owners are just basically playing a bit of Football Manager or something. In terms of, it worries me that they don't really have a proper striker. I know they've got the young lad who was on loan at Southampton last year, but I'm not convinced he's top tier. Sterling, I thought, looked very good, and I think he's going to have a good year. I'm really excited to see him kind of be the main man somewhere, but ultimately I'm not sure that's enough. And against Spurs, one of those teams looks like they've come into the season hot, and the other one looks like they haven't really started yet, and they're almost at the end of pre-season. So, yeah, I think there could be the away team could win this one.
Well, I'll talk you through. We've got the bets coming up on screen now, and I just think this is too early to call. Spurs, if they're going to be winning titles, which is what I tipped them in our ante-post preview, and there's still plenty of value in that if you want to go back and take a look. And if you hit subscribe, you'll never miss an episode. And do give us a like as we're chatting away here. I found this game really hard to call, and I was a little bit like, I wish we didn't pick it to talk about because I couldn't come down on it definitively. But I am leaning towards Spurs getting something. I've gone for the cards, the over 2 cards, over a goal, and draw or Spurs at about 13-10, just as a nice 90-minute bet. I'll be staggered. If Chelsea do beat them, there's no way it's by more than a goal in my book. I think it will be close. There's another bet I've got for the game that I quite like, which I'll just give a quick mention to. Son score or assist as even money. Well, as far as I'm concerned, I know obviously Jake mentioned the variety of providers last weekend for the goals, but in these big games, Son is going to be a 90-minute player. He's going to be there or thereabouts on any Spurs chance. And I think defensively, I know Chelsea got the clean sheet, but this is the same Chelsea side that got battered 4-0 in pre-season by Arsenal. I think I don't think that one clean sheet papers over the defensive issues that could still be there. So that was my bet for the game. Sam, let's go back to you to start with. You think Spurs will make a relatively fast start and get a goal in the first half at 5-4?
Yeah, so for me, one of the things that impressed me with the Spurs victory at the weekend was that first half. They were very, very dynamic, I thought. Very intense from the start, as you come to expect from an Antonio Conte team. And I kind of had a feeling, I was like, I think they might start really well, So I would just want to dig back into last season, see if there's actually any proof of this. So obviously, first game this season, they scored in the first half. We know that. And I look back, the last 5 games of last season, they scored in the first half of 4 of those, with the only exception being against Liverpool, who we know, obviously, last season had a fantastic defence. So that to me looks like a trend, even though there's been a break in the middle. And it's something I'd expect them to do here against a team that, like you say, this isn't the Chelsea we necessarily know, I don't think. So, yeah, Spurs to start 5-4, you can get odds on them scoring in the first half, and I think that's pretty good value, actually.
Jake, you've got a correct score bet you quite like, which I think, looking at the face of it, 2-1 Spurs. You'd be surprised if after the hour mark you weren't still in with a shout with that kind of bet.
Yeah, similar to what you said, really, Boz. By the game being decided by 1 goal, I feel it will be fairly tight when it comes to that. But I do see both teams scoring, and I think Spurs are just going to nick it. I mean, last weekend I did quite well in terms of bet builders, where I wasn't putting bet builders on random games really, but I think this game's got bet builder written all over it, to be honest. Surely it's got cards and goal scorers and everything. Surely it's going to be bookings all over the place. How many times have we seen Chelsea and Spurs against each other?
I'm going to stop you there, Jake, because me and Sam Farley both got quite upset on Sunday about cards. The inconsistency, we weren't going to have a set rant on the show, but I need a very quick one. The inconsistency has returned of Premier League refs. I can't tell you what a yellow card is in the Premier League anymore, because apparently Kufal down at West Ham can basically assault Jack Grealish and not get booked. And then you'll see other soft bookings in the league elsewhere, and you're left sort of thinking, I get it, every referee is slightly different. They're not all going to be robotic and the same. But it is a bit astounding how it's being played out. Sam, I'm sure you'd echo those thoughts.
Kufal, honestly, I almost went on a Twitter rant, but I realised basically nobody except for the few DJs like us would really have really cared. But the second should have been a yellow was basically poked Grealish in the face or something like that. Should be a red card. And as for that first tackle, it was he went in no control above the ball of the ankle with his studs, like in like that wasn't a yellow. That was a straight red in my view. But it's one of those that it's early in the game, so the ref does that thing they do. Like first minute of a game, if you go in 2 foot on in the face, you'll probably get away with it at the moment because they want to preserve the integrity of the game or whatever. Sod it. It's annoying me, especially when it cost me. And I again, annoyingly, I saw that tackle. I had money on it to start with. Saw that tackle, and I was like, there is no way he escapes a booking now. Doubled down, which just made my anger increase tenfold.
But hopefully, we'll see a few cards in this because I've got it in my bet builder. Like I say, give us your comment below. We want to know your best bet for the Chelsea Spurs game. Very intrigued to that. And let us know what you made of the season so far. What's your big talking point? What's your big issue? Is there any particular bets you like? We do have your questions coming up a bit later on the show, but I think Jake's going to now take us to a different place.
Yeah, so we brought in this new category last week, Bankers Bust and Draw. To be honest, did anyone get 3 out of 3? I'm not sure anyone did.
No?
Somebody got 2 out of 3.
Somebody did get 2 out of 3.
2 out of 3 is not bad, as Meatloaf would say.
Yep, so...
Rest in peace.
This week, I want to know what you're going for this week, boys, because we've already had a weekend of Premier League football, and listen, it's been a good start to the season.
He says with a Man City scarf behind his head. Which brings me on to my...
I have to be happy, so go on, Buzz. You go for your banker.
Yeah, all right. Well, my banker, ironically, is going to be Liverpool, who play my beloved Crystal Palace on Monday Night Football, so I'm leaving it till late in the day. Yeah, Liverpool, let's touch on them, because last week they let the world down, didn't they, at Fulham? I'm willing to put that down to potentially just the fact that it is first game of the season. Fulham, give them huge credit. They deserve to get something from the game. Liverpool, to my mind, showed there's plenty of firepower there. I think they'll tighten up. And as for Crystal Palace, I was an optimistic Palace fan Friday night, albeit with some slight caution. I'm convinced that Palace will make a slow start, having seen them now. I think Liverpool at home is always a tricky game, no matter what. It still looks like we're finding our feet in terms of players playing together, with the fact that the two squads were separate for most of pre-season. And the other point I'm a bit concerned about is I don't know how settled Wilfried Zaha is going to feel if this transfer speculation intensifies about a move to Chelsea. Because let's be frank, for all I love the guy, this is the last chance saloon for a move to a top 4 club. And I don't begrudge him it. If he wants to go, he wants to go. But Palace can't let it linger. They need to make a choice. We got rid of Benteke earlier on in the week as well. A little bit surprised to see him go to America. Edouard, for me, still hasn't cut it yet as a true out-and-out Premier League quality striker. I don't think he'll get you 25 goals a season. Morata, I'd probably say jury's not out on him for me. He scored some important goals for us, but neither look like they are going to hit. And this is what we desperately need, a player that will score goals. So, yeah, roundabout way, I think Liverpool are banker material. Klopp is not going to let them go back-to-back games dropping points.
Well, 2-9 is the best price you can get on Liverpool.
Listen, they're one for an acca, aren't they? I'm not going to say that it's a great price, but that's my banker.
I think with the weather and everything, the gardeners at Anfield are going to be putting a lot of water on that pitch just to keep Klopp happy anyway. Farley, what do you fancy this week? What's your best bet?
This is my banker, and look, this whole little feature is banker, bust, and a draw.
Yeah. This
is a banker. I'm not going to bet on it because at 1 to 10, I do not have the necessary funds to make this a worthwhile bet. But Man City, let's be honest, Man City, they're not going to lose. They're at home to Bournemouth. Inevitable. It's an inevitable win. Okay. I wouldn't even say include it in your ACCA at that price, to be honest. It's not worth the risk. But 1 to 10, it's a banker, isn't it?
Yeah. I'd agree with you, to be honest. I think it's one of them bets where I'd actually say if they don't win, I'll be on next week in my pants. Is that right, Farley? I think you might have said something similar last week.
I'm surprised to see clothes on Sam Farley. We'll save maybe everyone's allowed a mulligan and Farley's got his out the way early on in the season.
Farley's got his nice and early. My banker of the week's Arsenal at 1 to 2. I think they've got Leicester at home. I'm really not sure if I'm going against Leicester because of Sam Boz, to be honest. The things that he's been saying about them last few weeks. Leicester are rubbish. They're rubbish. But I think Arsenal's performance against Palace did surprise me, and I can expect them to kick on at the Emirates and really push on. So they're my banker of the week. Shortest banker too, so none of that 1 to 10, 2 to 9 stuff from me.
All right.
Well, nice 1 to 2 then instead.
Yeah.
great budget.
We should add. You know, we are looking for bets that we just think will win, not necessarily that the value. It's just a fun feature, and I suppose that brings me on to I better start with my bust, mightn't I? I was umming this one over and looking at the prices, and it's hard to find any of the super shorties that you think will get beat. But I've decided I'll take Man United on again this week.
Okay.
I don't think Brentford are a particularly spectacularly amazing team, but I don't think they're going to need to be. I really have concerns about this Manchester United side. I watched the full 90 minutes against Brighton, and a bit like Roy Keane did, the whole Brighton were great. We mustn't forget that. But now let's talk about how bad Man United were, because they are really bad. I don't understand. They knew that they were having a transitional period. They knew they were getting a new manager. Yet still, the signings they've made, it's one game. Probably can't judge them on it. I don't think they're going to have reinvented the wheel. I couldn't tell you what kind of system they were really trying to implement. That didn't feel like a change. Marcus Rashford, I really think he needs to move away from Old Trafford and just needs to be fit for a year. And I tell you what, as an England fan, don't want him near the England squad. He's not good enough at the moment. And it pains me to say that. I don't think I can't have a man that's all right, he was offside for it, but missing open. He's just not the player he was. And I hope he can recapture that form for England's purposes. But yeah, United for me, no way I can touch them at the price they're at. Quite happily watch them win and be proved wrong, and that Ten Hag's got them back round. Intrigued to see whether he starts Ronaldo. And actually, Donny van de Beek, I'd like to see him get some game time for United. If I was a United fan, I cannot believe he's any worse than McFred in midfield.
I think he's more attacking, though. You don't want him sat there deep. But I do agree in that McFred are appalling.
I think we could do a full podcast on Manchester United at the minute, to be honest, especially how they've still not signed Frankie de Jong.
I mean, I think I've said this on Twitter. I'm just going to say it again. If they don't sign Frankie de Jong this window, after effectively not even trying to get anybody else, despite everything telling you he doesn't want to be there, if they don't get him, I think that'll be the single most embarrassing moment for any Premier League club since the league was formed in the early 90s. I think it is. I'm not a Man United fan, and I actually cringe when I see the tweets because I think, how is this? This was a club, if you remember, back in the Fergie days, was like a byword for being well organised and well run. And now they're like Frankie de Jong's this girl at the bar who just isn't interested, doesn't want to hear your chat, definitely doesn't want to add you on Instagram, and will not respond to your Snapchats.
You're loving the picking up girls analogy this week, aren't you? Absolutely love it.
It's just
anyone I think Sam's the one that's being left on red, but there we go. Yeah, fair enough. No, I think we've probably gone round in circles on Man United.
Yeah,
but anyway, that's where
I like that though. I like that. The most embarrassing Premier League moment of all time if they don't sign him. And I've watched us get beat 8-1 away at Middlesbrough. Anyway, your bust of the week, Farley.
Look, I'm going to keep this quick. It's Villa. Okay. I think they're in a little bit of trouble, you know. They're 6-7, like odds on against Everton. And Everton weren't awful against Chelsea. I think the Connor Cody signing, I actually really, really like it. I think he's the sort of guy that could galvanise that team a bit. I'm a little more hopeful on Everton than I perhaps was. But I think odds on in the Premier League, you want to have a team that you are pretty confident will win. Can you be confident in this Villa team? For me, no. Steven Gerrard, I mean, you talk about a guy dining out on a few things. Like he started well, got a lot of plaudits, potentially going back to Liverpool one day. And to be honest, we've not really seen much of him being this dynamic young manager that we were told about. I expect him to be back in the BT studio fairly soon.
Ooh, okay.
No one wants to be there. God, next to Jake Humphrey. But yeah, that's interesting take, Farley.
Yeah,
Villa.
Yeah, well, that's the early kickoff. That's the early kickoff on Saturday. So the one rule is always avoid the early kickoff. One other note is Gerrard's gone from 22-1 to 8-1 to be the first Premier League manager to go in the last week. So
I don't think Villa will pull the trigger that quick. Those markets, it does fluctuate greatly.
I think they've got Everton this weekend and maybe Palace next weekend.
It's Palace the weekend after, then West Ham, and they need to
conceivably they could be on the back of 4 defeats in a row.
if they lose them 4 games, then Gerrard's under pressure. He is.
Traditionally, there is always an early sacking as well, isn't there? And it'd be interesting to see,
after those 3 games, they've got Arsenal away, then Man City at home, and you're not picking up anything from those 2 games, I don't think, at the moment.
And we've got more games in August, haven't we, before the window shuts than we usually have. It's a 5-game month. So potentially, if you sack him after 3 defeats, someone else can come in and get at least a chance to sign a couple of players. I don't know. Maybe Villa will just spend a bit more dough towards the end of the window and back him. That might be the way forward. I might just think that he probably survives through August, even with those defeats. But yeah, interesting.
Yeah, I like it though. I do like it. My bust, don't even know if it's even a bust, to be honest, because they are a big price, Wolverhampton, at home to Fulham. They're around even money-ish to beat Fulham at home, but I just can't really back Wolves at the minute, to be honest. And the way Fulham performed last week, I just feel like Mitrovic could have a field day against their defence at the minute. So my bust this week is Wolves. Like you said, Buzz, there's not a lot of massive odds-on favourites this weekend where you feel like
the favourites we've got are too short to be trying to be clever about. Like, let's be honest. And if you sat there, shouting us, going, "You're the same 3 bellends that said Liverpool wouldn't get beat at Fulham." Well, let's be honest. Did anyone think Fulham would get anything? Because I certainly didn't, and it was really refreshing to see, apart from the damage it did to my pocket. So fair play to him.
So to wrap it up, we'll go for the draw of the week. Now, Farley, I'll let you speak first because me and Boz are both back in the same game for the draw. So what have you gone for this week?
I'm going to talk about a game that you just mentioned in passing, actually. Wolves-Fulham. For me, this is a draw. I go as far as to say this is a 1-1 draw. I don't know what the odds are, but it's going to happen. Do you know what? The second we stop recording this, I'm going to put 20 quid on it.
Is it pants off potential again?
No.
Let's
at least get three game weeks in before Farley.
You're looking at 6-1 on the 1-1. It's going to happen, guys. It's going to happen.
Yeah, it's the last on match of the day, that game, isn't it? Let's be honest.
Yeah,
definitely,
probably.
So, lads, you've got the same game, right? Let's hear about it.
Jake, you better go first. I think you put this up first, so I'll have the scraps of your reasoning that you miss out. So go on, crack on and tell us.
The draw for this weekend is Brighton Newcastle. I think they're both fairly evenly matched teams, to be honest. After watching both their games last weekend, and I just feel like it is going to be a case of each other cancelling each other out. Really, Newcastle impressed me against Forest, who didn't really impress me, to be honest, and again, Brighton impressed me against the United side that didn't impress me. So I just feel like it's got draw written all over it. I can't see Newcastle going to the Amex and running rings around Brighton. And I could maybe see Brighton putting a few passes together and having a lot of attempts on Newcastle's goal. But I just think draw, mate. I draw all over it, lads.
I must say, I got Eddie Howe wrong when he joined Newcastle. I didn't think he'd last. I thought that he'd sort of do the first window, keep him up, and that'd be that, and they remove him in the summer. So fair play to him because he's proved me wrong. He's there. I think Newcastle, their signing and their business has been interesting this year. I don't think they've done what people expected. I think a few of us thought they were going to be like guns blazing, real money bags, throwing it around the place. Apart from this attempt to get James Maddison, to my mind, they've not gone mad. And I think it's been fairly sensible additions without trying to change the ethos of that side. So I probably got Eddie Howe wrong last year. Graham Potter, I'm a Palace fan. I have to despise Brighton by law, but my God, he is a very good manager. They've done so well to hang on to him so far at Brighton, because if the right job came up now, I think he needs to probably find a team in between Brighton and a top 4 team to do a couple of seasons at. That's where it's tricky. He need a team with resources. And actually, weirdly, I think if you swap the managers round, I think he'd be doing better than Eddie Howe at Newcastle. I really like him that much. This game, I just think both squads look fairly well balanced, evenly matched. I think both sides as well. I don't mean this in a weird way that they play for it, but they take a point. It's a good result for both sides. And I'm interested to see who finishes where, because I'd have these two fairly evenly matched in the league. I'd probably just slightly favour Newcastle myself.
Yeah, I agree, definitely.
I like that. So, look, we'll get stuck into the best bets by day. We have, I think, 7 games on the Saturday. 2 on the Sunday and 1 on the Monday. We'll leave the Monday today, seeing as we've mentioned the Liverpool Palace game in passing already. But for Saturday, I'm going to quickly guide you through it. Early kickoff, Villa Everton. Then we've got Arsenal Leicester, Brighton Newcastle, Man City Bournemouth, Southampton Leeds, Wolves Fulham, and ending up with a 5:30 kickoff live on Sky Sports, Brentford Man United. So guys, let's get stuck into our best bets for Saturday. And Jake, there's only one man I'm going to start with, and that is Boz.
That's good to keep Jake on his toes. So I'm going to contradict myself from some previous episodes. I watched the highlights of Leicester. They were okay. I don't think Brendan Rodgers is. I think my bet on him to be first manager gone is going to go up the Swanee, to be honest, which is fine. That happens. But James Maddison got an assist last week. He's priced at 5-2 to score or get an assist against Arsenal. Maddison takes enough free kicks for me that he's going to have an opportunity on one of those in terms of scoring. He plays well. Leicester are a team that will concede goals, but I think they'll also score enough. I'm not saying they'll beat Arsenal, but I can just see any goal involvement really will come through Maddison in my book. And thought 5-2 was just a really big price for a player that potentially seems to have knuckled down. He's not throwing toys out the pram about moving. And if he doesn't move and he wants to go to Qatar, he needs to impress, because I get the vibe with Maddison and Southgate. Southgate is a little bit iffy on him. And I think Maddison's going to need a wee bit of luck or some. He's going to have to play his way into that team that he can't not be picked. So I think he might have his head down and he'll get the move in January. Leicester for the season. But I really fancy him to do something on the big occasion. And I think against teams like Arsenal, 5-2. So it's a very big price. They're not bomb-proof. Palace looked a bit lackluster against them, but we could have had a goal or two. I think Leicester will find a way through.
I like it. I like that, definitely. I'll go with mine. Mine is Erling Haaland to bag a brace. City Bournemouth, 3:00. Listen, I've bottled it, let's be honest, because I was going to go -4 Man City as my bet of the day, but I'm going for Haaland instead. I think Haaland's going to have an absolute field day on Saturday. Just a mixture of everything, really. The fact that we're playing Bournemouth and we're the champions, first home game, 3:00 kickoff. The heat's going to be mad, so we'll just be passing it around Bournemouth for fun. I just can't not see him scoring, and there's no value in him scoring one, is there, at 4-9? Let's be honest.
Shocking.
Is the value in him scoring 2 at 15-8? I'm not sure there is, really, but
we should touch on the fact that Bournemouth are the biggest price I've ever seen for a Premier League team in a Premier League game, 40-1.
You get 46-1. Best price now.
46-1 best price.
I mean, someone will go 50s, won't they? And once the team sheets are in and City start the superstars, yeah. I've actually, just on a real quick side note, I will keep it brief. I did have a look. I love the whole 9-0 bet. I always think that's an interesting one, but you're only getting about 150-1 on that. I'll be playing multiples of 5-0, 10-1, 6-0, 18-1, 5-1, 25-1. If Pep wants to lay down a marker, it's games like this, he needs to start stamping his neck down on the throat of opponents. And he will be saying, he's not silly, he will be saying to his players, goal difference. And I think Bournemouth are more vulnerable for having won last week because they go there with no pressure on. And I think they won't go with backs against the wall. I think Scott Parker will try and let them play a bit, and that will cost them.
Yeah, I like that a lot. The other thing is, then it causes a domino effect. If we go and beat Bournemouth 9-0, then you've got Liverpool Palace on Monday, which looks like a massive game already, to be honest. And who knows what Palace can do there at Anfield.
Yeah, let's see. But look, Boz, you mentioned the Leicester game there, obviously away at Arsenal. I'm going to go to that game, but for somebody on the other team, Gabriel Jesus. He is a guy, a couple of bookmakers I know did a evens shot on target on him for the opening game of the season. A lot of people might have done their balls on that one, and they might have been very angry about it. And when it looked like Salah was going to do the same the next day, they probably got even more angry. But I don't know who those people would be. But what I do want to say is Gabriel Jesus, he will score against Leicester. They gave up 2 goals to Brentford, which doesn't fill me with confidence from a defensive perspective for Leicester. But Jesus, he got 51 passes into him, 7 touches in the box. That first half an hour in particular you were just thinking, like, who on earth is this fella? What have Man City been hiding him for the last sort of 5 years or whatever it's been? He looked superb, but it's clear that he's going to be a key part of this team. He will get touches in and around the box, which ultimately is what you want. And I think 6-4 to score it's huge value. Absolutely love it. So I would really recommend having a little tickle on that this weekend.
Strange, isn't it, how a striker can impress, even though he doesn't score? But I was impressed with him against Palace, and I think Arsenal will definitely relish having a man of his ability there. Right, should we turn to Sunday's bets then, boys? I'll just whip them up on screen. I'll kick this one off really quick and simple. I think I mentioned him earlier. Son's evens to score or assist against Chelsea. I know we had a variety of contributors for Spurs. I do love this market. You may notice a bit of a theme at the moment. Until cards settle down, this is my new poison, I think. Definitely enjoying it. Not been so successful so far, but we'll see what we can do. But yeah, Son, he'll play the majority of the game. I'll get the guys' thoughts actually on the 5 subs thing and how that might disrupt your betting. Because when we're talking about player bets, it is quite frustrating having the extra changes there potentially. But I think a player of his nature will stay on against the likes of Chelsea. He's too key. I think it'll be a close game. And I think he'll be involved. I really can't see him not being involved. And with that in mind, talk about bookings, I suppose we'll get Sam's bet because he's put a booking up. Brave man.
Yeah, and I'll be honest, part of me thinks it would almost be worth avoiding bookings entirely for maybe a month until we can kind of really get a handle on what this 5 sub thing is really going to do for the market, because I don't think there's been the movement in the market that you'd potentially get, which is maybe a little bit of a concern. But for me, the one I like is Christian Romero to get booked at 6-4. Put simply, he is a yellow card machine. In 22 Premier League games last year, he got 8. He is that stereotypical Argentinian butcher in defence. Absolutely love him as a player, but I do think he can be a bit rash. And obviously, when you've got Emerson Royale bombing up that right flank, you might get left isolated at times. And Chelsea, while they don't have a number 9, they do have that sort of little trio that are playing in the front there. You got Mason Mount, Raheem Sterling, and Kai Havertz. And I think Raheem Sterling running at Romero, coming in from that sort of left side, could give him kittens, to be honest. And for that reason, I would take Romero at 6-4. I think it's probably the best bet on Sunday. But I'll be honest, Sunday's bets do worry me. We touched on it earlier, the Chelsea Spurs game being quite hard to call. But if I was to bet on Sunday, well, I will bet on Sunday. It would be Romero booking 6-4.
Jake, last week you had this bet, I think, and you went very close. It was only West Ham that let you down. You got as far as the 4:30 game. Just intrigued to know which direction you're looking at this week with your both teams to score.
Well, this weekend I've tried to get a little bit more value in the bet, so I've gone for both teams to score and no draw double in the game. So I think that Chelsea Spurs, we've already touched on this. We feel like there may be a winner in here by a goal. I think there's going to be goals scored in it. And Forest West Ham, that game it's the game of 2 teams who I thought were 2 of the poorest teams of the weekend, to be honest, in the Premier League. And I can just feel that there's going to be goals in that game. Forest, first Premier League game in front of the home fans. It's just got goals written all over it. And again, I can also see West Ham going to Forest and going there winning 4 or 5-1. So it's one of them weekends and one of them Sundays where the Super Sunday, I think it's just got goals written all over it. I can't wait to sit in front of the telly and watch all the games, to be honest.
In 33-degree heat, Jake's
yeah.
there. What? Actually, won't you be? No, you'd have been at City on the Saturday, of course.
Saturday, 3:00, yeah, mate. Yeah.
Excellent. I suppose we better talk about the Football League then, chaps. Jake,
Yeah.
you want to run this one?
Yeah, so Football League, exciting weekend. Farley loves the Football League. He lives for it. I'm just going to go ahead straight away and say my pick for the weekend, Stockport to beat Colchester. They've lost the first 2 games so far in the season, and in both games, I don't think they played horrendously. I know the first half of the first game, they were 3-0 down at half-time, but they came back to lose 3-2, so they won the second half 2-0. The weekend, they lost in injury time. Referee had a stinker from the highlights that I saw, but I just think Stockport are going to really kick on and get their season actually underway this weekend with a win. Farley?
I really like that. Don't think Colchester are brilliant, although they did beat Ipswich away in the EFL Cup yesterday, on Tuesday, depending on when you listen to this. But for me, my bet, and I've been slagging these guys off since the summer. If you listen to our first podcast we ever did, I was saying they were definitely going down from League One this year. Nothing has changed my mind. Cheltenham are a mess, and you can currently get 11-8 on Portsmouth beating Cheltenham away. Cheltenham have been so poor. Opening game of the season, 2-0 up against a good Peterborough team. They blow it and lose 3-2. They lose away to Barnsley last weekend. Barnsley team, to be fair, I do think are quite good, or will be quite good. Lose 1-0. And then yesterday, Tuesday, in the EFL Cup, hammered 7-0 at home to Exeter City. And this wasn't particularly a bad team either, by all accounts. Kind of sent out there. So I think they are in serious trouble. And Portsmouth, I think Portsmouth are a good little team. They've obviously drew 2 games so far in the league. One of those was against Sheffield Wednesday, who I think are going to be there or thereabouts at the end of the season. They scored 3 against them, which is really impressive. They got, I think it's a little Scarlet lad on loan from Spurs, the striker, who's meant to be really talented youngster. I think he's not really starting for them yet, but he will be pretty soon. And 11-8, you're getting better than even money on this. I text you guys after that Cheltenham game against Exeter. I said, just get all your money on. This will move. And to be honest, the line hasn't actually moved yet. The market's not moved.
I've not had a bit yet, Farley. That's why.
Come Saturday, I don't think this is going to be 11-8. So I would just get on this because I think this is an absolute steal, lads.
I like it. Boz, what do you fancy for this weekend?
Well, actually, guys, can I quickly interrupt?
Go on.
This is my top off. I'm playing the top off card.
Oh wow!
On Portsmouth, Cheltenham. If Portsmouth don't win,
you've already used your free life we gave you because no one needs to see it. And with the third week of the EFL, well, look, I'll come to mine after that bombshell. How do you follow that? Well, I'm no EFL expert. First of all, I will probably stick mainly to the Championship this year. I just took a bit of reading, did a little bit of homework, and just started looking at kind of watching back some highlights. Don't really understand Blackburn's price against West Brom. Now, we don't have a lot of early season form to go on, but here's the nuts and bolts of it. Blackburn haven't conceded a goal in the league yet. They dispatched Swansea 3-0 on Saturday. Before that, they held out to a 1-0 win at home to QPR. Their pre-season form, if you read anything into that, well, they didn't concede a goal until in 2 games. Then they played Celtic right at the start of their pre-season and got a 2-2 draw against a very good Scottish side. Drew with Dundee as well. So they arrive into this unbeaten, they're top of the league. Not that means anything at this stage, really. But my point stands, they haven't conceded a goal in the league, and I really like that about teams, that they've clearly got the ability to score. West Brom, they're West Brom, aren't they? They'll be there or thereabouts this season. I watched them play Watford, but they got the point. Wasn't blown away. I don't think they've got quite the dynamism they need to go up. Steve Bruce, to me, is a man I would want nowhere near my football club anymore. So, yeah, 7-4. I just think I'm going on very limited form, but I just think it's a big price. And I think, if this game was, say, 6 weeks later and the teams had shown similar form, there's no way they'd be 7-4. So we'll take a punt and I'll throw that in the mix.
I like it. So look, we're going to get our passport out now, get down to Gatwick, jump on a plane and hit some overseas football. So guys, Serie A and La Liga, they both start this weekend. Do we have any thoughts on this? Boz, I know you're a no for this, but Jake, I know you've always got something.
My passport is clearly out of date, I think, for this week.
I've not even got a tip, to be honest. I've just had a look at the odds, and Barcelona are 1-6 at home to Rayo Vallecano. I'm going absolutely nowhere near them this weekend. Everything that's going around that club at the minute, it just seems toxic to me. And Vallecano got a result. I know it's pre-season, but he drew one all at Old Trafford, where you expected United to have a field day against him with Ronaldo playing. I just think that it's not going to bother him going to a new camp. Again, it's unsure if Barca are even going to have certain players registered in time. I've read that Christiansen, Frank Kessie may have to go by the weekend already. So It's bizarre, mate. It's bizarre. But 1 to 6, nowhere near them. Like you.
Might be worth a little lay, Jake, on one of the exchanges.
Oh, yes. That's a shout.
If you get to half time, it's 0-0. They won't be trading at 1 to 6. Barca.
What can you get Rayo for?
Rayo.
I just lay the 1 to 6 because
you could just lay it to
as well.
33 to 2.
33 to 2. What kind of odds are they? 33 to 2.
Next,
I love
my pick for this, and this is a bit stinky, Romelu Lukaku to score on his second Inter Milan debut, 10 to 11. Not every bookie has this price yet, and I think there's a chance you might actually see this evens at the weekend. But as of right now, 10 to 11 is the best price I could see. This is a guy who I still think he's a good player. I don't know what happened at Chelsea. That seemed very strange, but you still see him for Belgium. The guy he is good at scoring goals, even if he does move like a fridge occasionally. But he scored on his last 5 debuts for West Bromwich Albion, for Everton, Man United, Inter Milan the first time round, and for his second Chelsea debut, he notched in the opening game. So this is a guy who does score goals in debuts, and at 10 to 11, I think it's well worth a gamble.
No, fair play. And he does look in good shape. He looks in good shape. Like, something about Italy just seems to suit him, and he seems to care a lot more about playing for Inter. I don't know what it is, but he just seems a beast out there. So, yeah, fair play, Farley. And I'd be backing that. And, Jake, I agree with you. I will not be touching Barcelona. Right, time to switch codes completely now. And a little bit of a trumpet. I haven't got the sound effect, so just ta-da. Last week, I put up Little Big Bear, ante-post for the Guineas. Didn't know if he was going to run at the Curragh, but he did. He sluiced up. Pretty impressive to my eye. He went from around 12 to 1, 14 to 1, which is the price we got him at last week. He is now your 4 to 1 market leader for the 2,000 Guineas next May, which is lovely because we can sit on that ticket through the winter. Touch wood, horse will run once more this season. I suggest could even take in America. I don't know. I think he might go to Newmarket back end of the season. We might be sat on a 2 to 1 favourite for the Guineas through the winter, which would be lovely. But main thing is we got our price. So with that in mind, I've been a bit braver this week, and we're going to York in terms of the biggest racing this week on ITV. You'll see it's the Ebor Festival, which culminates with the big handicap on the Saturday. I'm leaving that race alone. It's one I've never been able to find the winner of, and it's very, very tricky, quite a compressed handicap. Earlier on in the week, you'll get to see the best horse in the world, in my opinion, which is Baid running. This is the first time he goes up in trip, just slightly further, over 1 mile too. This is quite significant. In all his races so far, including at Goodwood, where I saw him last time in the flesh, he's breezed through a mile, won easily. What we haven't seen him do is see if going that little bit further changes anything about him. In my opinion, and this is all I've got to go on, not data, not stats, I've had a look through his breeding. I've had a look at how he runs his races. I think going to 1 mile 2 will not be an issue. A lot of people have said, including in his own camp, they're going to try and replicate the Frankel route, which won't mean going to the Arc, because the Arc is that little bit further. It's in October. The ground can be soft, which wouldn't suit him. However, I'm sat here, middle of a heat wave. We've had drier autumns than this recently. We could get a dry autumn. At 33 to 1, I have to have a very small dart at this, and it's with a major bookmaker, so you can all get it. It's not some tin pot two bob bookie. So it's out there, 25s and 33s. I'm advising a small bet because I don't think he'll go for it. But if he wins impressively in the middle of the week, connections are going to be asked, what about? And they won't, I don't think they'll rule it out if he wins impressively. If anything, it'll be, we'll take it day by day and see. If he was to turn up at the Arc, unbeaten in a year where a lot of the contenders have fallen by the wayside. Keep an eye out for a horse called Luxembourg this weekend who returns. He's probably another contender for it at a double-figure price. I just want to throw just a half point each way out there. I'm feeling good after last week, so that'll round off what we're playing. Enjoy York, good little festival, cracking racing, but make sure you tune in and watch the Baid race if nothing else. He's 4 to 9. He should win. I think he's a price to chuck in all your accas.
I do like that. I like it a lot, and we should try and record the week after this podcast just to see after the actual race itself to see if there is any sort of movement on Bailly. To be honest, I think that's a good shout.
Yeah, there might be. I think they are going to stick to the route that they've chosen, and I completely understand from a breeding perspective as to why. But there have been stronger arcs on the table. There have been wetter summers. I just feel there's a chance he goes, and if he goes, he is no 33-1 shot if he does what I expect him to do. So it's a dart, but it's a bit of a hopeful dart.
I
like it. So from horses to, well, let's say donkeys, to be honest, because you're going to talk about Darwin Núñez now, aren't you, for the World Cup Golden Boot? I'm not saying he's a donkey, really. He's been perfect the last few weeks. Farley, tell us what your picks are for the World Cup. I know you're going to be over there. You're going to have the time of your life, I imagine. What are you fancying?
Yeah, so there's two things I love. It's futures for the World Cup and futures about England's squad betting for the World Cup. I've been betting on this.
I like it.
Sorry, that's
your American head,
hasn't he?
His American head.
He's joined the gold rush.
Let's go for the ante-post then. I love betting on the England squad, and I've got a few in my back pocket that I've had for about a year now. I'm looking forward to, but there's one that sneaked up on me, and it's Ryan Sessegnon. He was very, very good the other day for Spurs. That team is much improved. Again, we spoke about Perisic before. We're not convinced maybe he's going to be this guy who could play every minute just due to his age and what we saw at Inter Milan, where he was sort of hauled off after 60 minutes very, very often. So Sessegnon to make the squad starts to look a bit more possible, especially if Tottenham do what we think they'll do this year. Then you've got the left-back situation for England. It's been Shaw and Chilwell for quite a long time now. We saw at the end of last season in those friendlies where those guys weren't around, trying the likes of James Justin at left-back. Just a right-footed left-back does not work in this system at all. Southgate will have learned from that, and I don't think he'll do that again. So I'm thinking 6-1 is the current price on Sessegnon to make the England squad. It was 9s immediately after that Spurs game. It's already been bet into 6s. If he continues to do well, I think that will only get shorter. He's gone through the youth ranks England, and Southgate loves somebody that's done it properly through the youth ranks. So I think this is well worth. Like you don't go hard on a bet like this, but I think a $5 or a $10. It's a nice little one to follow through the season. And I think there's actually a really good chance because let's be honest, even if we do commit to Shaw and Chilwell in the middle of a busy season, do you trust either of those guys to stay fit?
No, true.
I don't. So Sessegnon becomes quite attractive for me. But the other one I want to talk about is Golden Boot. And this is always a mad one. You always get such stinky prices on the top boys. But there's a couple of players who really leap out at me. And that is Edinson Cavani and Darwin Núñez.
Okay.
Cavani, 150-1. Núñez, 50-1. And basically, I was so impressed by Núñez for Liverpool. The way he just sat centrally, moved not a huge amount, but was just there. He is going to score a lot of goals in the Premier League. I'm very confident on that. And his record for Uruguay isn't fantastic, but Uruguay have potentially, I think they've got the shadow of Portugal in their group. But they should be able to score quite a few goals. Núñez should get quite a few goals. Their route after that probably isn't too tricky after the first. I think they got one or two easier knockout games before it really starts to kick off. And I think Uruguay could be a real sneaky team for this World Cup. They're a bit of a dark horse. So why do I not want to have a very, very small flutter on either of the strikers that could be starting for them? Because there still is a bit of doubt over who will be the number one striker come World Cup time. So I'll have a couple of pounds on Núñez and maybe £1 or £2 on Cavani at 150-1. And I think that offers a bit of value.
Sam,
and you go each way to 4 places.
Oh, yeah. I want to dive in and ask a question while I've got you on the England squad, because I know it's something you study religiously, and I look at it, but I just want to throw something out there. Which of these players would you have as the shortest price to be on the plane, right? Conor Gallagher, Calvert-Lewin, Smith Rowe, or Tyrone Mings?
Conor Gallagher won't be on the plane unless he moves because he's just not going to get the game time. Calvert-Lewin, will be on that plane if he's fit, but serious question marks. Who else did you mention? So
Smith Rowe.
Well, Smith Rowe, I think, despite every Arsenal fan saying he should have been England's starting player at the last Euros, he has now been kind of, I think, found out isn't fair, but I think we know his level is good player, but not exceptional. And Mings, I'd probably say Mings should be the shortest price.
Right.
That's...
Can I blow your mind?
Go on.
So Calvert-Lewin and Gallagher are basically the shortest, both around 6-4, 2-1. Smith Rowe, who to my mind should be shorter than Gallagher because he's playing every week in an Arsenal side that looks half decent. All right, it's one game, I get it, but he's 7-2. Tyrone Mings is 11-2 to make that England squad. Now, I know he hasn't, obviously seems to have fallen out of Gerrard, but if I had to have a bet on any of them, like that's surely a position we're a wee bit vulnerable at, aren't we? Maguire's completely out of form. You know, you're going to rely on the likes of Connor Cody. You got the Marco Gianni at Palace, but like, you know, he's a Palace centre back. Throwing him in a World Cup, that's a hell of a shout.
I think Gay would be the one I'd go for 11-4 as an outsider defender for that. I think he could do really well. And even at Everton, you've got Cody now. You've got James Tarkowski. Tarkowski's 16-1.
He's 16-1. That's a big price.
16-1. And if Everton do back their ideas, there is room for a centre back in that. I think when you look at that, well, it's a 26-man squad this time. I'd say goalkeepers. Henderson could say you got two locked up. Maybe Henderson could sneak in as the third. Defense, right back. I mean, you don't know which ones are going, but you know who isn't going. There aren't many positions I think are totally open, but for the sort of fourth or fifth centre half, that is definitely open. And the player I would take, he's 5-4. This is just personal choice now, not a betting thing. I think Eric Dyer has to be back in the England squad. He's done so well in a 3 for Conte. He's versatile. If we needed him to play in midfield, if we were down on injuries, he gives us that flexibility.
Takes a mean free kick, good penalty.
Yeah, I just think and Southgate loves him. He's shown that in the past. So I think Eric Dyer could be a bet as well.
I like it.
Well, from World Cup to God knows what, Jake is back with another random pick. So Jake, what on earth have you got for us this time?
This week, very quick, because there's not a lot going on, to be honest with you, but Strictly Come Dancing contestants are being announced this week. I like the look of Paralympian Ellie Simmons, 6-1 to win the show. I think the whole country will get behind her. I think she's got a great personality, and I think that 6-1 to win Strictly, Ellie Simmons, she is going to be there or thereabouts, I think. Tony Adams has been announced today, 33-1. That's one to put a quid on.
No. Come on.
Ellie Simmons. I'd literally say 20 quid, lads. If not more.
Like I don't know how to say this. Like how technically good with her height, how will that impact her ability to dance? Do we think that could be an issue?
We've had similar contestants on America's version, and the girl who was on that was very good. She got very far in the show.
Did they take into consideration, Jake, a partner that would be more in terms of like compatibility? They still had a partner who was like about 5'5", 5'6". So there is some sort of help. Listen, the last one of the show couldn't hear the music. I mean, it's phenomenal what she achieved. So that
was incredible.
And again, the whole country got behind her, and I feel like it's going to be the same with Ellie Simmons. So I reckon, 20. I'm going to put 20 quid in it. So
it's an interesting market, and I'll be honest, I do a bit of quoting strictly for work, so I'll certainly be keeping an eye on myself. Big Tony Adams. I'd sooner take your tip every day of the week, Jake, than Tony Adams. I cannot imagine. He's just going to look so awkward. He's too tall. He's gawky. No, not for me. I'm out.
It's going to be brilliant, though. It's going to be brilliant. So what we'll do is now we'll go over to our Twitter questions. We ask this every week, and again, if you are listening, send us questions every week. We'll answer everything. This week we've had a question from James, FPL Avocado, so an FPL fan, who's asked us if there's any value in Serie A outrights. Now, I know we've discussed this in previous weeks. Farley tips Roma to win the league. Having a look at it, is there anything that either of you two fancy? I know I fancy one, but anything that you two fancy?
I'm on Farley's Roma tip, so I'm going to be Forza Roma till the end of the season, and I'll let him take over because I wouldn't have a strong view on Syria.
Okay,
Yeah,
Farley?
I'm very much. I think Roma have such a good chance, but this is a price. I think when I mentioned it a week or two ago, I think I just got it at 16s, but by the time the show went out, it was 12s, and it's now into 13-2.
Yeah.
I think you're probably reaching the point where I'd say 13-2. It's maybe worth a little tickle, but if it gets to 5s, I'd probably hold fire there because I'd say that's probably what it should be. So yeah, I wouldn't really go beyond Roma there. I think there's something very intriguing about that team. The likes of Georgie Wijnaldum coming in, the experience, the flair of a Dybala, the know-how on how to win a title like Dybala as well. I think that's a team I really, really like the look of, and at that price, definitely.
I like that. What I've seen is Ciro Immobile 7-1 to be top goal scorer. So he's third favourite behind Lukaku and Vlahovic. But he's been top goal scorer in that division for 3 of the last 5 seasons. So I think that bookies have kind of disrespected him a little bit, to be honest, in terms of the odds. But I like him at 7-1. And I like a few doubles and trebles around top goal scorers in each division because, as we've mentioned previously in the podcast, it's always nice to have bets where they've run along for the whole season. So, James, there are picks for that. And again, 13-2 Roma. I'm sorry to say we got better value in previous weeks.
You should have been watching earlier on. That reminds me, make sure you all subscribe. Give us a thumbs up. It means the world to us if you're watching on YouTube. If you're listening on any podcast platform, a positive review, 5 stars would be more than welcome. We're working hard to try and find you some value and I hope you're enjoying the content. Thanks for the comments so far. Keep them coming in. We want to hear more from you. And you can give us a good slagging when we tip up things like Liverpool can't be beaten and they get a point.
So what we'll do is we'll wrap up the show like we always do. We'll give our weekend treble. Last week, Farley, shall we talk about last week? Because I think I gave you my jinx last week. Is that right?
Yeah. So last week, Mbappe was my pick to score at Clermont. Everything was set up for him to do really well. PSG absolutely thrashed him, had a brilliant game. But Mbappe was injured. You gave me the injury curse, so I've avoided going for a player to score this week.
Okay. Boz, Trent score or assist last week. Should we not even talk about
that? If Liverpool had got the first goal, I think we'd have been cruising and through. It was possibly a bit ambitious, but it's going to happen. And I've left Trent alone this week, even though he's playing my beloved Crystal Palace, so probably bang one into top corner. Do you want my bet for this week?
You know what? Let's kick it off with your bet for this week, Boz. Go on.
All right. Okay. So this week, I'm going for your Man City -2 at 3-4. I know it's not the biggest price in the world, but, I'm going to have my 9-0, my 6-1, 5-1, 5-0, 5-1 bet on the scores. You can conceivably wake up and see this being 4-0, couldn't you? If you fell asleep Saturday morning, woke up Saturday night, you missed City putting 4 past Bournemouth. I have a bit of a bone to pick potentially with Pep, which is I don't want to see him putting teams on cruise control this year, which is why I probably held off -3. I can see him. Haaland obviously got whipped off against West Ham with 10 minutes to go. Didn't get the chance for his hat-trick, which he could have got. I suspect he'd have had a chance for it if he'd stayed on for another 12 minutes or so. So, yeah, -2 Man City. That's going to be my best bet of the weekend for the treble.
Okay, I like that. Farley, what have you gone for?
Well, for me, I'm going to go for Jefferson Lerma to get booked. Jefferson, who you're probably asking, he plays on the left side of Bournemouth's sort of back 3 of their sort of back 5 system. And I think ultimately this is a guy who I don't think he's that great, but more to the point, he's going more than likely to be up against Jack Grealish. And I thought Grealish was he didn't get an assist. He didn't score last week, but I thought he looked pretty good. As we mentioned, he had Kufal on toast a few times. And I'm going back to the well. 15-8, you can get Lerma on. And I think this is a nice little one to boost Anaka, or what might be in this case, I think our weekend treble might have turned itself into a little weekend bet builder.
Yeah, so I did have Chelsea, Tottenham, both teams to score as my bet up until about a minute ago, to be honest. And now after seeing you two having your best bets in that City game, I'm going to change mine and go for Haaland to score in the game.
So we've made a bet builder by mistake on our weekend treble. This is all death or glory, lads. We're going for here.
So yeah, Erling Haaland to score. I don't really think I have to describe why I've gone for Haaland to score. To be honest, you're getting the best price for that treble, just over 3-1. So it's a bit stinky, but you asked for our best bets. That's what we're going for.
It's 90 minutes, isn't it? So, it's a case
it's 90 minutes.
All three of us combining. And, who knows? Potentially, Jake, come Monday evening, title race could be done if Palace do you a favour.
Exactly. That's all I want. So, everyone, thank you very much for listening. It's been another great week of the pod, I think. Anything you two boys want to add just before we go?
Can I add one thing very quickly?
Yes.
Please, as Sam said, like, subscribe, follow us on any social medias, comment, whatever, rate us on your podcast stuff. We absolutely love it. Yeah, it's all up there. Take a look. And one final thing, if Portsmouth don't beat Cheltenham next week, I will be doing the EFL tips section without a shirt on, just to let viewers of a nervous
disposition look away, I should say, because that is going to need a health warning.
Actually, it's not going to happen. They'll win, so that's fine.
Exactly. On that note, I think that's the perfect note to end on. So thank you very much, everyone, for watching. Again, like, subscribe, comment. Let us know what you're going to be backing next week. Thank you very much for watching. See you later.